guys, and welcome to my video. This week I'm going to tell you a little bit about Mac versus PC. Now this is an argument that's been going on since, obviously not the beginning of time, but since the beginning of both of the operating systems. And first of all, what is a Mac? Well, Mac really is both hardware and software, whereas you could say a PC is just a machine that runs Windows. But for this purpose we're going to be looking at both the hardware and the software of it. So without further ado, let's have a look and see what the differences are between Mac and PC. Now one of the main appeals of a Mac to people is the design, and to be perfectly fair they're quite right, because Macs are superb pieces of hardware. They look fantastic, especially the new iMac and the MacBooks, all of them, they really look good, which is one of the things that people will go towards when they see it in the shops. This big little shiny good looking computer next to some of these horrible old PCs, clunky things that you get, and it's it's not really surprising that people will go to and have a look at the Macs. I did have an iMac. I had an iMac from 2006 to present, still got it, and it was a nice bit of design, and especially as an all-in-one computer it was really good. And to be perfectly fair, there aren't really many Windows all-in-one computers that I think I would consider if I was going to buy a computer. They're just not as good. Apple, they make both Mac OS X, the software, and the hardware, which is obviously the iMac itself. And because of that, they're experts really, and they make a really nice computer. And to be perfectly honest, if you're the sort of person that just wants a computer just to do not necessarily basic things, but you're not going to be pushing out the boat and doing any like high-tech stuff, then an iMac would be a really good choice. Whereas if we look at PCs, then obviously it varies a lot more, because it's not made by Windows, with the exception of the new Surface tablet. Windows, that they don't make their own hardware, so you're left to decide, and while you've got way more choices, a lot of them can't be necessarily, well, they're not perfect. There have been a few all-in-one PCs recently, a couple by Acer, one by, there's been quite a few, but because of Windows 8 now, the all-in-one on PC market is gonna rise, because there are some beautiful things out there. Every now and then you'll get a lovely piece of hardware from somewhere like ASUS or something, and they look just as nice as Macs. But Macs do have that design that really is to be desired by a lot of people. But when we start to look at the Mac Pro, things do start to change. Once we get to the Mac Pro, as the name suggests, it's for pros. It's people that know what they're doing, know what they want, and while design is important, it's not quite so important. And saying that, I'm really happy with the PC case I bought, which is the NZ XT Phantom. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. And there were plenty of choices. Sure, there are some horrible cases out there, but there are some loads and loads of lovely cases out there, and I've never really thought the Mac Pro looks that nice, to be honest. Maybe it's just me, but they just look a bit like cheese graters sort of things. I mean, it's being discontinued in Europe now anyway, but that's when things start to get a bit different, because the pros, they know what they want. They know that they can choose any different components, any different cases, put it all together, and at a lot cheaper price as well. We're looking at about at least £2,000 for a Mac Pro, or about $3,000 or whatever it is and up. And that's when things start to get ridiculous, because you're paying for the name, and why people do that I have no idea. I certainly wouldn't recommend anyone buy a Mac Pro just because they're just not worth it. Ease of use is something that is very important. Obviously the pros are going to know what they're doing, and no matter what you choose, Mac or PC, they're going to know what they're doing. But what if it's either your first computer, or you're just not really a hardcore user, you use it for maybe a bit of Facebook, a bit of email, a bit of Word, there's not that much to it. And then, to be perfectly honest, Mac and PC, they're both very easy to use. When I went from a PC, I had a PC, Pentium 3 it was, in 1999 until 2006, and managed to learn that. I mean, I was very young at the time when I had that, managed to learn all of the stuff of that, and then when I changed to an iMac in 2006, it was all remarkably similar, yet a tiny bit different, both very easy to use. Windows 8 is it's okay. It's not going to be that different to learn to use. It's just a bit bigger. But as an ease of use, I would say both are great, and I wouldn't worry about going to a Mac from a PC or vice versa. It's not really going to bother you that much. Now, people say that Macs are better for graphic design, and I don't really know why they say that, to be honest. It's almost like it's this big rumour going around that has to, because everyone's told you enough, it's suddenly true. All the applications, with the exception of Apple-owned brand applications, are compatible on PC, and yes, it's very true that an Apple monitor is fantastic, an Apple iMac screen is fantastic, but you could get either the same. You could use an Apple display if you want, or you can use either a better display or worse display, whatever you want to do with a PC, and it's going to be the same. You can get Photoshop, you can get Sony Vegas, you can get all the stuff on both Mac and PC. I don't know if you can get Sony Vegas on Mac, I don't know. But why people say it's better for graphic design, I don't know. If you have if you know, leave it in the comments. But I really don't see why, because you can get the same applications and you can get the same screen quality on both, and I really don't see why people say it's better, to be honest. But for compatibility, then obviously Windows is way better. I mean, yeah, Macs, they're getting better. They've got a lot more applications being written for them. But I don't understand why you're effectively gimping yourself, because sure, that, you know, it's like my Windows Phone, I suppose. I like Windows Phone, but there are really not that many apps, and I've effectively gimped myself by buying it. But obviously I'm very happy with it, and like people are very happy with their Macs. I suppose it's a similar thing, but there's just way more applications for Windows. It's just, and the thing is, it's things like this mouse here. If you plug that into a Mac, then you can't change the DPI, whereas in a PC you can change it as high as you want. This is currently on 2000. So if I started using a Mac with this mouse, then it'd be awful. So just basic things, basic applications, they won't run on a Mac, and it's a bit silly. Obviously gaming is, if you want to game on a Mac, then you're just ridiculous, to be honest. Yes, it's true, I did have a Mac in 2006 and I did play a few games in it, but that's exactly it. You can play a few games on it. No one buys a Mac to play games on. That would be like buying a Nintendo Wii to play Call of Duty on. Sure, you can play Call of Duty, but it's not going to be as good, because there just aren't very many games out there, and they're not going to run as well, and it's just silly. Obviously, from a compatibility point of view, you can change your hardware in the PC. You can in a Mac, but it's not supported, and third-party supports it very limited. So people again will say, yeah, you can, but you can play Call of Duty on a Wii, but you just don't, because it's not as good. I just want to throw one thing in there. For some reason, it's become this trend to sit in Starbucks with your MacBook Pro out. Just, you know, they're using it, having their coffee, and they think they're the dog's bollocks. They think they're the bee's knees. No, you just look like a bit of a I can't say that word. You just look ridiculous. How about that? It's just, if you're one of those people, just why? Honestly, sure, maybe, you know, it's not all of them. I guess a few of them, you know, you sit in Starbucks and you actually need to get some work. But who sits in Starbucks for 2 hours doing work? Not many people. You look ridiculous, I'm sorry. And this brings me on to cost now. Now this is the main thing. Macs and PCs are about the same ease of use. Macs are essentially less useful, if you like, because they don't have the same compatibility that Windows PCs do. You could talk about viruses, but after the whole Mac, what was it, like 1 in 10 or something, Macs got this virus, I don't think we can really talk about viruses anymore, because it's not that viruses aren't compatible with Macs, it's just more people have PCs, so more people are going to write viruses for Windows. But as there are more and more Macs, people are starting to write Mac viruses. So I don't really think that you can say that Macs are particularly more secure than PCs anymore. I think that argument's pretty much expired. But costs. Now, you're paying for Apple. That's what you're paying for. You're paying for having an Apple machine. This PC here, I couldn't work out the total cost, but it costs £700 without a graphics card, So that was just for like the bare bones sort of process, like everything you needed except for a graphics card. £700. Now, if I bought that in a Mac, that would cost at least £1,000. At least £1,000. And it's just silly, really. You can buy a Mac Mini from a decent one is about 600 and something quid. And if that cost me 700 quid, I know obviously it's a Mac Mini, but you could buy a smaller case. You're paying for the brand, that's what you're paying for. So effectively you're paying for a computer that can do less. I do like Macs. I had it and I was very, very happy with my Mac, but as soon as I wanted to actually start to do stuff with my computer, I found I needed the Windows PC. And every time I go back, it is an old Mac, obviously, so that's not necessarily fair. But every time I go back to the Mac, I don't like it anymore, to be honest. Which brings me on to a conclusion, and that is, if you have, a fair amount of money to spend on a computer, then you have two choices. If you want something that's easy to use, then it doesn't matter. But if you want something that you're going to be happy with, but you don't want to do anything necessarily advanced, aren't going to want to do any advanced applications, then I would actually say then you probably want a Mac, because it looks nice, it runs very well, it's a very nice operating system, and it's just nice to use. And I think there's something about them that they just make you happy when you're using them. It's kind of strange, really. Maybe it's just a breath of fresh air. But if you actually want to do anything with your computer, then you're going to want a Windows PC, which is kind of weird, because if you're the sort of person that doesn't care about your computer so much, then you're going to spend less and you wouldn't be able to afford a Mac anyway. It's kind of a difficult run, really, but I just see all these people with their, iMacs are great computers, don't get me wrong, but it's when people buy these computers because they want to do graphic design, it just baffles me, to be honest. It just baffles me. What most people do is they get a Mac and then they put things like Quark Express, Photoshop, and things like that on them. But you can just do that all with a PC. It doesn't make much sense to me. But maybe I'm wrong. If you're a Mac user, leave your comments in below. Why you're a Mac user. Why? This is serious. No fanboy stuff. No. Mac's better. Wait, no. Not PC's better. Wait, no. So, it's all about why you think that. It's about what actually makes it better. Because I don't think there is necessarily a better one, but it's about what's best for you. But you're never going to be disappointed with a Windows PC, I don't think. But I think if you got a Mac and then wanted to do stuff, I think you could be disappointed. I don't know. I wasn't disappointed, but I didn't want to do so much back then. So it's kind of difficult. Thank you for listening to me waffling on. Thinking about it, I don't know whether this has been useful. Maybe it has. I don't know. It's my opinion. I don't know. Maybe it is useful. Anyway, I will see you next time.